Alright guys, what's up? I've been getting some requests about how to ink, like for me to make videos and stuff, so I thought this would be a good chance to film this video. Here I'm inking this piece here, 4 characters. And I'm going to start with the faces first, but before I start I'm going to show some of the supplies I use. So here's the brush I'll be using. This is pretty good for details. I'm not sure if it's going to show up here, but it's the Winsor & Newton Series 7. So this one here is a natural hair brush. So I find these easier to ink because you see the bristles here. You see how it bends? So it's more predictable. Sometimes the plastic ones, it'll bend and then it'll just bounce right back. So that'll cause unpredictable stuff to happen while you draw. And I put the ink in this little bottle here, right? I dip it in, then I wipe the brush by the side so there isn't too much ink accumulating on the brush, right? And then here's the ink I'm using. So this is the Koino, I don't know how to pronounce it, but here you could read it. It's non-clogging waterproof ink, right? So this is great if you're using pens, or I think the Rapidograph pens too works in them. And even if you put this in like a brush pen, it doesn't clog up, so these are awesome. So I buy these by the bottle because it's cheaper than if I keep buying a smaller bottle after smaller bottle. This one here was, I think, 8 ounces, so that's a cup. Alright, so let's get started. So see, I dip it in there, right? And then I just wipe it off the side. I try not to wipe it onto like what's it called? A tissue or something. I see a lot of people when they ink, they wipe the brush onto a tissue, but I don't like that. I usually like to have a piece of paper on the side so I could see what kind of a line it makes. So let me try to, I'll open a book, my sketchbook here. So let me move it to the side. So here I'll be testing the lines out, right? You could even twirl the brush on it. See what kind of a line quality you get. Right now, I recently just dipped the brush into some water just to get it to, you know, so the ink could flow better through it. Usually right when you start off the inking, it doesn't feel really comfortable. So just practice a bit on a piece of paper on the side, you know, get comfortable with it. And also the way you hold it is important. Like you don't want to hold it very grippy like this, like a pencil, because if you do that, it's just difficult to have flexibility. I mean, the lines are coming out all right because, you know, I could draw in multiple ways, but if you're a beginner, you want to hold it as loose as possible. You want to make sure that it's comfortable so your arm doesn't just get all fatigued and everything, because if it gets fatigued, you're gonna stop drawing, and then, you know. So yeah, just make sure, see, it's comfortable like this. Just draw some lines. I want to get as much ink out as possible. I want to be left with a little bit because I want to be drawing really thin lines here. See that? Really thin. So let's practice some. Once you feel comfortable, then you can get started. So right now I'm feeling a bit comfortable. Let's hope we don't mess up. All right. So I'm going to start with inking her face first. So let me get that in the middle. There we go. Trying to get this whole video in one take so I don't have to edit much. All right. So much noise outside. Hopefully it's not too loud and you guys can hear me. All right. Let's get started. What I like about when I ink with a brush is that it just feels way faster. Like I could get thin lines, thick lines. You see here? I get that thick part of the eyelash instead of going over it multiple times with a pen, right? Go one time and then boom, you got a line like that. And just, I can't explain how to do it because I don't know if I can, but it comes with practice. Like the more you draw with a brush, the more it becomes easier to draw with it. And when you draw, right, the trajectory of the line, you don't just, like, I'm not starting here and then, so let me explain it here. Let me go to the notebook. All right. So let's say I drew a line, right? So I'll draw a line right here with pencil. And I want to ink over that line. I won't just start here, put the brush down, and then do that. you see how you end up with that? You don't want that. That's not a clean line. So I'll draw another line here, right? You want to start with the brush off the paper. See how it kind of lands? I'll do it sideways so you can see the tip of the brush. You start, it's like an airplane. It's landing, and then you land, and then it comes off. You see how that's clean? Ends up with those right here. Sometimes you could even, with the brush, you can make so many different types of marks. That's why it's awesome compared to a pen. So let's say you could do this. Marks like these, right? These are good for cross hatching. So let's say you got an arm right here. Let's say that's the shoulder, right? Say that's the bicep right here, tricep, right? Got that forearm muscle, right? Got an elbow, right? Let's say you're done with the basic shadows or whatever. Let's pretend these are good, right? Pretend they're good. It's not clean here, but whatever. So let's say you got those shadows, right? And you want to create a mid-tone, right? You could kind of, oh my God. They've been working on that car outside since the morning, bro. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. All right. So it's a little sloppy, but you kind of get what I'm talking about here, right? You kind of create a mid-tone, making those kind of sharp lines. It's like you see it in a lot of old school comics where they used to do this. I don't know why they stopped doing it. I think it's because of the coloring, right? Because since if you could color, I mean, if you could edit stuff better on a computer, you don't really need to do so much midtones. And with high contrast stuff, without like a midtone like this, right? I don't know what the correct word is, but this type of cross hatching sometimes could get blurry when you're scanning stuff or drawing stuff, especially if you're coloring over it and stuff like that. I might be wrong here. Correct me in the comments. So yeah, you create a kind of midtone like that. But you see how here it's very sloppy. Here, it takes a long time. So let's say you got a cube here or something, and you got the dark over here, and then you could just go boom, boom, boom. That's very sloppy, whatever. You get the point, all right? So yeah. Now let's go back to ink in the face. You see how I didn't even dip the brush once after the initial time? Because the brush, that's why I don't like using the paper towel. Because when you use the paper towel, right, it sucks too much ink out of the brush. Think of the brush like a well, right? That part here is a well. Most of the ink gets stored there and it comes down to the bottom slowly, right, as you draw. So let's continue here. See, with making dots and stuff, it's pretty difficult with a brush. Also, right now, I can't really see that well because the camera is in front of my face and I'm drawing over it, trying to look over it while I draw. So it's a little difficult. I'll try my best. So right now I'm trying to just get the darks, right? And then I'm going to use a very small pen for the smallest lines, just so I don't take the risk of, you know, messing up, because I can't really draw that well right now because of the camera setup. But you see how I'm making it. You take your time. You don't just draw like as if you're drawing with a pen. You get interesting shapes when you draw with a brush. You see, like, you see the ends of the lines. It just feels better. It feels more comfortable with a brush. And sometimes if I were to do that with a pen, I would have to go multiple times over it just to get the correct line width. So when you're drawing, line widths have to do with like so look here, for example, you see how the line on the outside is thicker, right, than the lines on the inside? Because if I drew all the lines the same thickness, right, some of these here are just ghost lines, so I gotta erase them, like this line here and that line. But like the outlines of the muscles right here, the main figure, the outline of it's going to be thicker than the outlines on the inside, right? So look here, some of the outlines of the anatomy, right, the rib cage and stuff, or like some of the accessories on the clothing, it's not going to be a thicker line than the lines on the outside, because if it is, it'll get all confusing, and the viewer, when they look at your image, they're not going to see it that well. So I'm going to continue here. I'm just going to do the outlines with the brush. That's really my favorite thing to do with the brush, is the outlines. Sometimes when you make a mistake, you get tempted to go over it again. Don't do that, just leave it alone. Come back later, fix it. Maybe with another pen or white out or something. But yeah, I kind of messed up here, but it's fine. Right now, just working on the hair. Let's start with that strand of hair here, and then going through there. All right. So, I'm not sure if this was enough knowledge on inking. I want to make another video, but here's kind of like a intro just to show what kind of ink I start with, what kind of a brush, and showing you an actual process. So here, this video is a little long for what I did, but yeah, hope you enjoyed. Maybe you learned something. I don't know. Let me know how I did. Later.